What is remarkable about this panel is we have members of parliament, some of them first-time members, but they are all successful professionals in their own right. And they are, for the young audience, I must say, that they are people who have come into politics despite being very prominent and successful in their professional lives. So politics is not entirely the bad world or a world that is better avoided. Let me start from that. For example, if I can call you Bimal, yeah. He's a well-known professor in Jawaharlal Nehru University, and he made his first debut speech at midnight in Parliament. And if there are some positives of having social media, is that his speech went viral. As he spoke about Manipur and about its marginalization and the distance between Delhi and Manipur increasing, I would like Bimal to shed light on the topic. And did you actually expect the kind of response you got on your first speech, which not only went viral, everybody had to come down to cover it and took note of your speech and what you were trying to say?
First of all, thank you for inviting me to this program. There is a story behind that speech, and also whatever I've spoken has a lot to do with last 35 or 40 years of my academic life. The way I try to understand this country, what is this nation all about? That's why you can sense the thing I talk about. We talk about, say, for instance, continuity between the colonial and the post-colonial, and even the present government is trying to sort of do a decolonization process by changing criminal laws into, new kinds of laws as we're enacting. It's a well-known thing among many post-colonial scholars that many ideas and practices in these countries are still those introduced by the British.
I think you hold it a little closer.
So, with that background and students I have taught from Tamil Nadu, right now I also have a PhD student from Tamil Nadu, incidentally, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, this cliche, then I have students across this country, and I've been trying to find with them what this country is all about. And the crisis in Manipur has again revealed much more clearly, which I have articulated some 25 years ago in my academic writing. The way in which we look at the Northeast, the way we handle this crisis itself is a reflection of that continuity. So I intended to express that in my first speech. Despite the Manipur's presence in academic world, in medical field, in defense, my community, for instance, has the largest per capita officers in defense forces. We are the number one, followed by 6, the number of officers in defense forces as compared to your population.
You hold it closer.
So what I'm saying is, despite all this presence, incidentally, one of my junior colleagues is a professor of mathematics. He's leading the Indian for the mathematics Olympiad in Australia. He's also from my community. He's in ISI, Professor Shanda. So despite all this presence in sports and others, in cultural field and so on, the manner in which the government of India decided to keep silent, or even to some extent how the rest of the country looks at this crisis. I have raised this issue to journalists. I said, had this happened in Bihar or UP, would you have allowed this to happen? Then categorically the journalist says, it is on YouTube, you can check. They said no. So they said, somebody says it's a tyranny of distance. I said, it's not a tyranny of distance. This is not a case of out of sight, out of mind. It is rather a case of out of mind, out of sight. That's the case. So I intend to communicate on the floor of the House, and I was doing it systematically, and then I learned people started shouting me down. That's why last 1.5 minutes of my speech was full of emotion.
Which is
and-
very surprising, which was not there earlier. That is the change that has happened. First time MP's debut speech, the tradition was he or she was never interrupted and allowed to speak, given more time. That was the norm.
I think, I have done as a student of social science how the parliament has changed, its composition, its ethos have changed over the years. This is nothing new, but I have seen it from inside. What I have read in, PhD scholars' work and so on, I can see in practice now how there was a time when people used to wait like a Friday opening of a movie. The parliament session people waited to listen to Nehruji speaking, and how the debate goes on, and Westminster model and those things. And people have been writing since the last 20 years or so that that particular culture has shifted slowly. And I can see firsthand now that that culture is gone. And shouting, and sometimes you will be shocked the kind of things that have been said. But I was mentally prepared for this. That's why, they are trying to distract my time, so I shouted back. So you can see change in the tonal aspect of my intervention towards the 1.5 minute of my speech at the end.
So rules of engagement has changed.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, you take it that
So
way.
it's a different era, different time
Yeah,
altogether.
absolutely.
But some of your speeches, not just your, some of your speeches of other MPs have also gone viral. So it's not as if that people don't listen to it. Listen when something clicks and some point is made forcefully enough and engaging enough, people do listen to it. And social media somewhere has kind of propped it up. I will, John, I'll come to you.
Yeah, please.
Later, because you are the veteran in this panel, and Dr. veteran or an old timer, if one could say that in your party lingo. Dr. Behra, there's a lot being said about. One of the contentious issues which have led to Parliament not functioning and very bitter debates and bitter altercation is around the question of caste census, right? How much do you think that caste, that is required for what the opposition is saying, for equal or non-opposition parties also, say Nitish Kumar also joins that chorus, required for equal distribution of resources. And do you think in the parliament, actually the issues of SC/ST community or the OBCs are heard or discussed in the manner it should be? Or do you think that, population categorized and discusses is not the real way to go ahead?
Okay, thank you. The Bharatiya Janata Party, my party, and the leader is Modi ji, Mr. Narendra Modi ji. He is not a prime minister, he is a visionary leader. He has a thought process, he has a vision to make India a new India. So new India concept he has developed, the Nutan Bharat with societal values, with Indian ethics and all these things, you want to make a new India. So for that he has categorized India into 4 parts. One is youth, to my call Z generation. Second is women, the Matru Shakti. Third is farmers, those are our Annadata. Fourth is poverty. So he has said poverty was one of the categories. If you have Viksit Bharat 2047, so you have to make progress, elevation of these 4 factors. Youth, to some Z generations, women, agriculturalists or farmers, and poverty. If you uplift these 4 factors, then you can reach that light. So this caste census, OBC, all these things, he has a tremendous respect for Ambedkar ji. He has tremendous, and our party has tremendous respect on parliament, values and all the constitution of India which has been brought by Ambedkar ji. But further he doesn't want, we also reservation, whatever are talking now, everything is done by Bharatiya Janata Party and Narendra Modi ji has done a tremendous contribution for this. We are not shouting, we are not doing politics on this. We want the real upliftment of all sectors of the society. So caste census, they are saying why it didn't took place during Congress era. Where it is there. So it is unnecessary create problem. Rather we have a system for reservation of the OBC in various levels. So Mr. Modi, our leader, is always thinking of doing in this forum.
Yeah, we'll come to it in more detail later. Prime Minister Modi doesn't quite hide his own caste position. He doesn't deny the fact or doesn't hide the fact that he himself is an OBC leader, and which has to great extent helped Bharatiya Janata Party catapult into a position of power from which it has not been dislodged, and that has helped. So we'll come to that point. John, if I could ask you, left in terms of its footprint in the Indian state, sort of state government, in terms of power equation, in terms of number of MPs it has in both houses, has been dwindling very fast, and with it, representation and time to speak is in Parliament, and the houses of Parliament is dependent on your strength, right? So, how difficult do you find it to put across your point in terms of getting time and the way the Parliament functions, more in disruption than in debate? And how do you put across your point? And especially when you come from a profession which is media, where you get the platform to say, and you have been in leading position where there was nobody to stop your voice. So how does it work out?
I'm glad that you asked about the Parliament. It's true that I am coming from the profession that is media, which used to be media, but according to me, that media has become Modia now. That is my new finding. And when you talked about Parliament, I've been seeing this Parliament for last more than 3.5 decades, I would say. From 1988 onwards, when I used to cover the Parliament as a correspondent, as a journalist. Now, my friend from the Congress, Manipur MP, he talked about the way in which his maiden speech was disrupted. That is what he said so. So, with regard to Manipur, of course, I spoke in Parliament saying that the responsibility of the Prime Minister is to give pran to the people in Manipur and in India, not to gods in Ayodhya. Instead of participating in pran pradishta, the Prime Minister should participate in the pran pradishta of the people. I think that Manipur is the only state where the Prime Minister hasn't visited. My dear friend, it's more than 1 year the state has been burning, and the Prime Minister who goes to even to Kerala to attend a wedding hasn't found time to visit a state which is inalienable part of the country. And the Parliament discourse, I would say that. When I say that, you see, as a journalist, I used to witness the Parliament debates. Veteran journalist Prabhu Chawlaji is there. You should be releasing about those debates when people like Atal Bihari Vajpayee used to be there. There used to be a parliamentary discourse. Now, there is no parliament, but the entire parliamentary process has gone down in the drain. You have everything now, the structures are there, but the content has got completely eroded. This is what is happening in this country. Nowadays, there is no Acha Din. I don't know what the Prime Minister says about Acha Din. So, when we talk about institutions, the biggest debacle that has happened in this democracy is that all the pillars of the democracy have started crumbling, including the media which you represent. Please ask your boss the stature and the status of the journalists which used to be in Delhi, and what is the status of journalists now, the way in which the ministers behave to them. And there was a time when Even when Rajiv Gandhi was ruling this country with 3/4 majority, all the scandals used to have been doled out. The journalists used to report about it. Have you seen a single investigative story in last 10 years in any of the Delhi media? If anybody show me an investigative story, I would go and obviously prostrate in front of him. This is the status of the institutions of this country. You finished off with planning commission. Did the economy of the country improve? You finished off the old parliament. Did the parliamentary discourse has strengthened in any way? Take any institution for that matter.
John, John,
I will just add one more.
we can hold a separate discussion on the status of the media, whether media is doing what it should be doing, not doing. But here I'm trying to understand, has the left voice being marginalized in parliament and outside? How difficult do you find to put your point across, viewpoint across in parliament, given your dwindling stature? And in my state, in Bengal, you are politically also marginalized, right? You are not, you don't have to, you are not even there in the assembly. So I wanted you to speak on that.
I do agree with the fact that the strength of the left has dwindled, and that is the unfortunate part of the Indian politics, because that was a shade of opinion which used to be there. Now, when you talk in terms of the left strength which has got eroded, and that has resulted in me not getting ample time or my party not getting ample time in the parliament to speak. But I see nobody is getting time to speak in the parliament. There's a complete disruption. Assuming that I had 15 or 20 MPs or 50 MPs, did it make any difference to my party or the parliamentary discourse? How many days did the parliament function? That's what I'm saying. It's true that my party strength has got dwindled, and most of the, I would say, the strongholds of left has got eroded, especially your state, West Bengal. We are only governing one state, which is Kerala. But I would say the view of the left still remains to be very relevant to the country. That's what we need to, underline. Whether the strength. BJP was at a point of time having only 2 MPs in Lok Sabha. Did it make it a point that you see they were irrelevant in Indian politics? Absolutely no.
John, Sitaram was in parliament when BJP had come to power. But I do remember Sita making very powerful speeches, taking on then leader of the house, Arun Jaitley, squarely. Then, I remember as a young journalist covering parliament where Somnath Chatterjee or Indrajit Gupta spoke. Indrajit Gupta used to scold many of us whenever we asked questions, but they were excellent speakers, okay, and their numbers were not very great. So maybe there is a sort of, that aspect also one needs to look at. And they made impact nonetheless, despite their numbers. Now let me come back to Bimal. You spoke about your debut speech being disrupted, but whatever happened, it went viral and you spoke at midnight and it became a remarkable, it became a story in itself. Tell me something, do you think Manipur has been effectively discussed in parliament? And I don't want you to speak just as a INC MP. Okay, you speak as a Manipur MP and say how you would have preferred Manipur to be discussed in parliament and what should have been done.
First of all, excuse me because I come from this tribe called academics, so I tend to quote things from thinkers and so on. There's this Danish philosopher, Søren Kierkegaard, once said, that you want to explain the general, then you look for an exception, a true exception, because the exception will explain the general as well as exception itself. So if you think that the way the 75 years, how this constitution has been operating, what is the nature of this country, what are the dynamics of exclusions that we have been experiencing over the last 75 years, I think Manipur is that exception. The constitutional order has been thrown into the dustbin. Okay, so you have a satrap, local satrap. This is almost like a empire where the Delhi decides everything. And so, the fact that many of us in the rest of the country will be looking at the way European journalists or the parliamentarians in Europe had looked at Rwandan crisis. There have been a lot of criticism against the manner in which the Western countries have responded to the Rwandan crisis and how is it different from the way they responded to the Yugoslavian crisis and so on. I can sense that generally the way we have responded to Manipur's crisis smacks of that one, and that is precisely what I'm saying, that is an example of the continuity of the colonial ethos from the post-colonial, from the colonial to the post-colonial. So the way, Article 355, is it in operation or not? Nobody knows. There is a chief minister who says that certain areas will be taken care of by the home minister, union home minister, and he's taken care of certain areas, which is unthinkable in this country. Ambedkar had once called the law and order as a domain, as he called it, the sovereign and plenary authority of the state. We have example of how certain articles have been amended because to curtail the influence of the union government on the state. We have histories of that. 257A, for instance, the capacity of the union government to send in troops was thrown away by the Supreme Court. But you are witnessing a classic case of the subversion of constitutional mechanisms. There is an extra constitutional exercise of power, and there is a willing satrap who is running the show in Manipur. It is like that Manchurian king, Puyi, the last emperor. Japanese prop him up for sometimes he thinks himself as a king. And I think these are the aspects that when I want to talk, we don't want to talk about, and especially, it is my request to the rest of the country, don't talk about Manipur as a thing out there. It is a reflection of how this country is all about.
Bimal, if I can interrupt and tell you, I'll share something with you. We are largely seen as a southern paper, though we have an edition called Morning Standard, and it's called Sunday Standard in the weekend, in Delhi, which is sort of doing well. We do have an edition there, but we are largely seen, and we do carry a fortnightly column by a Manipur journalist, Pradeep Panjabi,
I know.
regularly. And when the crisis happened, when it was at its peak, Patricia Mukim, she's quite well known, she wrote for us one or two columns, and you would be surprised to know when she just wrote, she had to run her own paper. When she had just written one or two pieces, and then she simply didn't get time. So we got so many letters saying, why aren't you getting her to write? We want to read and know what is happening. And this was letters coming to us and people calling up from, say, Trivandrum, Kochi, Bangalore, and all these places, Hyderabad, okay. Lot of interest about what is happening. So you have spoken about the silence around Manipur. Maybe inside you feel when crisis at that peak, but there was a response from the people, and people wanted to know. Okay.
No, I'm not denying that. In fact, I think I have written a piece for your paper as well on that women protest. I have done a piece. Those naked women being paraded. I think you asked me to contribute one, so I wrote one. I think I'm not talking about a couple of us writing in national paper. It's a general trend is what I'm talking at. Excuse me for saying this, Indira Gandhi becoming prime minister doesn't necessarily mean that women folk in this country is doing well. It is in this sense that Incidentally, I have done led a research team. We have investigated the manner in which within court national media have responded to, and it is dismal. It is all against the Press Council of India's standard. It is that work is available online. We are bringing it as a hard copy as well. We have covered, I don't want to mention the name of that big media houses, 5 within court national media. We have analyzed the content on an everyday basis. All the news that cover Manipur, we have used theories of media studies and methods, scientific methods, and the finding is deeply, deeply disturbing. I have never seen Indian media responding to the crisis in Manipur like this. So that's one side of the story. The manner in which we have responded, when I said it includes the manner in which the media have covered, almost fueling the crisis. I have said this, if I may take his name, Karan Thapar also. I said, you are fueling this crisis rather than dousing the flame. That's very unfortunate. It's a blot on the history of Indian media, if I would say that. But generally, I think, let's take it. This crisis has been going on for now 20 months. And who's in charge of this? Nobody knows. The Amit Shah is saying that the CM is cooperating.
Yeah.
And the CM says, my power has been taken over by the union government without declaring president's rule and so on. So I think it is, as we celebrate 75th year of this constitution, who is talking about complete subversion of the constitutional mechanism by the people who are ruling this country? I mean, nobody points finger.
Let's throw open the idea, because you are coming back to the same point, and media is always the easiest flogging pole.
No.
So, Dr. Behera, if you could tell us, do you think the Manipur issue was not discussed properly? It should have been discussed more intensively than it was. And how much do you think that opposition disruption of the parliament costs also creates another kind of silence around first-time MPs, even for the largest party like yours?
Thank you.
In the sense, silence in a manner that you don't get to speak. In any case, you have whips and etc. You can never speak your mind.
I was a government servant. I was director of National Informatics Center. I was in a discipline line. First time I took VRS, joined Bharatiya Janata Party. But my first experience in parliament, I thought there should be scope of debate and other things should be there. But what is happening in parliament, the opposition, they don't have any agenda, only agenda to disrupt in the parliament. We see in the Prime Minister's speech, the Manipur issue is unnecessary, that chaotic condition inside the parliament. There is no issue, they have this chaotic. They have already told your time is there. Suppose time is for 12 noon. So 12 noon, within that framework, the opposition should speak. They are unnecessarily delayed the process. And when the Prime Minister started speaking, that time they are the chaotic condition, they are rushed to the center point, they are howling. This was my experience, that they didn't allow our Prime Minister to speak. This type of unruly things should not happen, whoever the opposition. And as my experience, lots of opportunities given in the parliament in the fair means. Mic system, I am giving that example. There are lots of discussion, the mic is stopped, but mic is a very automatic system in parliament. Nobody has the control that you will stop that mic, open that mic, this is automatic. Once you speak it, then they are complaining that intentional mic is stopped. Similarly, debating, everybody has, I can say, the opposition leaders are getting fair chance of speaking rather than we government leaders. Because in first time, we are getting less opportunity to speak. Rather, the opposition all are getting opportunity to speak.
That's because the numbers have changed, Dr. Behera. Numbers have changed, so the opposition is getting more time to speak, right? And courtesy is not shown by either side. Okay, we see behavior which is not suited, or which we have not seen in Parliament before.
Parliament, suppose-
Okay, so that is true about both the Treasury and the opposition benches.
No, our Prime Minister, you should have
Yeah.
respect to the Prime Minister. There someone is telling by
Yeah,
name.
that is what I'm saying.
they are
The
shouting.
courtesy is
This
not
courtesy
shown.
is not shown.
But tell me something. When is the last time that an adjournment motion was admitted, or Rule 183 was admitted? When was the last time?
No, this time is
You are a new MP. Have you seen it in your in your tenure term in this months and that you have been there?
I'm talking about Indian Constitution and Baba Sahib Ambedkar. That issue
Right.
has taken place inside Parliament. I was also present where Pratap Srinivana for MP was hurt by the Congress leader, you know very well. But the thing is that, actually, if any party has done in favor of anything on Baba Sahib, respect to Baba Sahib Ambedkar ji, that is Congress party. That is Bharatiya Janata Party. But he has got Bharat Ratna Award during the NDA period. He has given all the opportunity, the 5 places of Baba Sahib Ambedkar, the Panch Tirtha, Honorable Prime Minister has declared his birthplace. He has taken Diksha in Nagpur, his working place in Delhi, Mahaparinirvana at Mumbai, and where he studied in London. So we have enough respect for Baba Sahib Ambedkar. There is nothing tampered on permutation and combination of Indian Constitution. Any respect to Indian Constitution, wherever it is tampered, it is during previous government, some other period. But this period, it is must respect is given. But unnecessary, they are howling that Bharatiya Janata Party is tampering with the Indian Constitution. This type of politics should not be there. That I have felt that unless there is a completely chaotic condition inside Parliament with this argument, but this argument does not hold good. If anybody, Baba Sahib is tortured by that period, Congress period, because he was not allowed to contest. That he has become the first law minister. Rather, from Jogendra Mandal, one leader from Bengal, he has supported him. So all the story when our Honorable Prime Minister and Honorable Home Minister has clarified in the Parliament, then accounting consists to.
Ambedkar has emerged as an icon which no political party can ignore. Yes. Okay, right now, and Bharatiya Janata Party, which is very good at messaging, has of course done enough to appropriate Ambedkar legacy and make it a national legacy which no single party can go and claim. That is what has happened, and while propagating the narrative that it has been the party which has promoted and shown maximum respect to Baba Sahib Ambedkar. But it is very surprising that in the last election, it is on the Constitution and the basic clause about the Constitution where the Dalit vote seem to have moved in the fear that something may be done to the Constitution.
Actually,
the reservation will be moved. That's a kind of, your party for the first time failed in conveying in messaging.
Yes, that I am coming to that part.
Yeah.
Actually, in previous session, you are asking that Congress.
Right.
So how
But-
we have to done
you
well
are-
in Parliament, and it's not done well in states like
Right.
Haryana and Maharashtra.
Actually, if it had not done as well as it did in Orissa, in your state, then it could have been a different
Thing is
Lok
that
Sabha
there is a
altogether.
rumor spread during Lok Sabha election, general election, that once BJP will come to power, then it will remove reservation. That the main power Congress has utilized, rather misutilized, to get the seats. When Bharatiya Janata Party owned and we have formed the government, Modi ji has taken drastic steps in upliftment of SC/ST, constitution preservation and other things. then people will realize that the Modi government will never change the constitution. Then this is the basic result of Maharashtra and Haryana election. But other factor may take it, but this is the basic.
Yeah, you
people
have,
have the
this-
confidence
Acha.
that the constitution
Yeah.
will not be changed.
Right. John,
Yeah, I understood.
You
Can
come
I,
to.
Can I supplement?
Yeah,
See,
please.
basically, we should put the record straight. My honorable friend was saying that, see, the legacy of Ambedkar, he said that it was NDA government which bestowed Bharat Ratna. Absolutely wrong. It was VP Singh government which gave Bharat Ratna to Ambedkar. Where was NDA?
But BBC government supported by.
What is that?
That time Bharatiya Janata Party was not there. but
Please
supported
listen to me.
by
Please
party.
listen to me.
Okay.
See, just because VP Singh gave Bharat Ratna to Ambedkar and to uphold the legacy of Ambedkar, he went on to, to implement Mandal Commission report. That was the reason why BJP, took back the support. So essentially, the legacy of the Ambedkar was actually thrown to wind by BJP. If at all it had some respect for Ambedkar, it should have supported the Mandal Commission recommendation, implementation done by VP Singh. So now, you are absolutely correct. There is something on an appropriation that is happening. Anybody and everybody is appropriated by BJP. Sardar Patel, who banned RSS, is being appropriated. Vivekananda, who talked about bigotry, drenching the earth with blood, is being appropriated. Even Bhagat Singh is being appropriated. Even Ambedkar. See, when Ambedkar introduced Hindu Code Bill, who was around the street? It was RSS. It's Ambedkar resigned from the cabinet precisely because RSS protested against the Hindu Code Bill. So anybody and everybody who are not part of their sphere is being appropriated by RSS. This is the politics.
John, this process of readjusting politics has happened in your party as well. You had problem with Bose, Subhash Chandra Bose. You had problem with Tagore. You had problem, many of them, Vivekananda. All of it you readjusted and fine-tuned your politics. They have also done it. So that is a process of political evolution. I will just give a quick last word to all of you. How would you say, how do you make your voice heard? In this era where social media has come to dominate everything, and is AI a threat to the politics that you do, the grassroots or the daily politics that we have seen till now? One quick word, two sentences each. We have to wrap up.
I think in the world of post-truth, I think the sanctity of parliament must be restored because people should trust what is being deliberated on the floor of the House as something more reliable. I think in that sense, we all parliamentarians must be honest to the role that we play in our society. We should not be reduce ourselves to the hankering and unnecessary attempt to influence and manage perceptions just as you do on social media. In this regard, I think we must also rethink. It's time for us to rethink what this country is going through. The nationalist ethos, the way we imagine India has been changing over the last decade or so. As part of that, I expect as a member, the marginals should speak for themselves, and everybody is trying to appropriate Ambedkar and so on. I think Dalits and they have to speak for themselves, just as I would speak for the marginal people in India's Northeast in particular. But when I speak about India's Northeast, you should not forget that I'm talking about this country. So I expect one way to begin I'm looking forward to is that all of us participate equally and do the needful.
I don't want to interrupt, but Bimal, this is also about a mindset issue. We have celebrated many of your great artists in Manipur, whether it is Aribam Sham Sharma, whether it's Ratan Thiam, whether it's Kanhai Lal, whether it is Savitri.
That's okay. It's like calling,
America.
celebrating Sita and
no,
stuff like
no,
that
what
doesn't
I'm trying to
necessarily
say
mean
that
you are
I'm
doing
not-
good for the women.
No, I'm not trying to in any way discount the crisis that is going on, the kind of divide that your state is facing. We are trying to give coverage for it, but I would say that, the fact that there is a thing that, there is silence around Northeast. The process of a conversation, I think, is there, was there. There has been disruptions, but efforts have been on. Yeah.
Just let me one sentence and I'll wind it up.
Yeah.
I'm saying that let's be honest, there is a need to reflect on what this country is all about, and that should begin with the way we deal with Manipur.
Right.
My question is that, my point is that in parliament we have come, we have been elected by the people of this country. When you are talking, you should see people of this country is listening, not the government party, nor Bharatiya Janata Party. The entire people who was elected, what I am contributing for my nation building, what I am doing for my people, my area, that should be priority. But unnecessary creating a misinformation in the parliament, that will lead to the other parties also. That is my point. Second, now artificial intelligence is coming. The deep fake plays a vital role. So that you should take care while taking into that consideration.
Yeah, that's a serious problem.
Yeah,
so
I
you
think-
have the last word, say.
No, see, the point is very simple. The idea of India with its rich diversity and the institutions that were built up should remain. So, in a changing world with AI threatening us and also giving us so much of hope, I don't know how to decipher. I also have concerns whether the AI will affect the democratic process also, because even a despot can create a false intimacy and even hijack the elections. So these are all concerns. But the present concerns for me is that this country with rich diversity, the plural country with rich institutions need to remain intact. The idea of India which I carry from Kerala to Delhi has to be there. It should not be unilateral with uniformity. It should be with rich diversity.
Thank you, sir.
So much. There's no time to open it for questions. I'm sorry about it.
Thank you so much. With that, if I may invite onto the stage.